Hello, my name is Mike Welker, instructional designer at NC State College. This time on this CanvasCast, we're looking at the groups feature. Now, if you're not familiar with it, groups is a capability in Canvas that allows you to create predefined subsets out of your regular Canvas class enrollment. And in the small group areas, you can create different kinds of interaction for sharing files, for sharing discussions, as well as with your assignments. Then you can then activate group assignments and or just group discussions. As an instructor, important thing to remember is you will always have access to all of these subgroup areas or group areas that you create. Let's go take a look at how you set up groups and how you deploy these pieces. So I'm in my standard issue course here, and where all this starts is under people. But for what we're going to do with groups, what I'm going to need to do is create something called a group set, which I need this plus group set button for. If I left click on that, it's going to ask me, what do you want to call this? Now, bear in mind, this isn't naming the actual specific groups themselves. This is just saying, what's the general box of what we're going to call these groups. So I could call this project groups or class teams or whatever I wanted to say. Now you've got a couple options here. I would always recommend staying away from the self sign up because you as an instructor want to have control over that. Likewise for the group structure, you can automatically distribute them, but I would highly recommend being able to manually set up your groups based on some sort of criteria that you're controlling. So I've gone to people, I've created a group set, I've called it class teams, no group sign up. I'm going to create them manually, say save, beep, bop, boop. And now it takes me from the everyone tab by default to now I have a tab named whatever I call my group set, in this case, class teams. And now this is where I just have this bucket of class teams. Now I need to define my teams. And the first piece is, this is a little bit counterintuitive, but now I need to define plus group, because right now I have no groups. I just have a header for class teams. But I can say, let's create a group. And I'm not going to limit the group size there. And then so on and so forth. And as far as limits, there's no limits as far as Canvas is concerned, however many different teams you have. Now, I have to populate these or define those. So I've got my roster over here in the left-hand side, so I can drag and drop to make my team assignments here to do that. And then if I expand it, it's going to show me who's all in it. So I've got two teams, Emma's in beta, and Joe and Josephine are in that one. Now, if I had other groups as well, I could create additional group sets with different teams. Like if I had project groups as well, I could create another group set for that, so on and so forth. But at this point, I've created my groups and defined the membership of the groups. Now, the next question is, generally speaking, now I've created these group spaces, what's in them and how do I access them as an instructor? Again, I go back to my people area and then whatever I call my group set name, in this case, class teams. And for each team, to the right of it, the little so-called 3 dots menu, I have a visit group homepage. When I click on that, I'm going to see basically a subsite of my main class website. In this case, the Team Alpha group. And in there, I can have announcements that members can post or I can post to just this team. I can have specific pages of content. People show me just the group members and who has access to those. Discussions is typically where the most heavily used feature is done in the group areas. They can also share files. There's a file space, and then there's a collaboration space as well. There's a conference space, but just don't go into that. I would advise them not to go into that. But the collaborations is for sharing things like a Google Doc or Office 365 doc. From a student standpoint, once they've been assigned one of these groups, they'll have a new area up here on their Canvas navigation called Groups. And if they go into that, that's going to list whatever team name they've been assigned. So if they click on that as Josephine, I'll have access to all those different group site features that I've been, can see from the instructor side as well. So now that I've defined my groups, I'm a little bit familiar with navigating around that. What I can do then is I can go to my assignments, and I either can create or modify a new assignment or modify an existing one. And I set it up just like I would a normal assignment. I can set this up and say, this I want to be a group assignment. And this appears again when creating a new assignment or editing an existing one. And once I do that, then I have an option. Do I want to assign grades for this group assignment only to each student individually? If I do, I check that. If I do not, and I just want one grade per team, then I'll leave that blank. But if I want to differentiate individual student grades for this, that's how I could activate that. And then as far as my group set, whatever I've defined, in this case, I was just set up the class teams. And then like usual, if I'm setting up a new one, I would set up my due date and all that other good stuff. From a student standpoint, then when they come to the assignment, it'll look like every other assignment here. And if I've got set up to submit online, I'll have the submit assignment. But this will give a reminder in this case that, hey, this is going to be for everyone in your group. So just as a reminder. And on your side, when you go to grade the group assignment, it will be, you'll be able to view that. But instead of individual students, you're just going to have your team. So when I say this for Team Alpha, everybody in that group that I've defined will then get that grade, and I can move on to Team Beta submission. For discussion, if I want to set up a discussion just for the groups, then I can go to the discussion area and do plus discussion, and I can give it a topic here. Then I've got all the usual suspects here with threaded reply, so on and so forth that I see with the normal discussion. I can make it graded or not graded. And then the key to this is under group discussion, say that this is a group discussion and assign it to whatever teams I've defined. And the key thing to bear in mind is that this is going to show up for a sub forum, so only people in this group will be able to see that discussion as instructor. I will have full access to any and all discussions and be able to grade that if I need to or whatnot. Now for me as the instructor, when I go to this forum, I'm going to have links to my different breakout areas for each of my teams. Now I'll still in SpeedGrader have the normal view, but as far as viewing the posts in context, that will be a different twist for that. From a student standpoint, though, it's just seamless in that when Josephine student here sees the assignment for team discussion for the solution there, she doesn't have to drill down or go anywhere else. It's automatically going to take her to her team's specific discussion. So in a nutshell, that's it. That's the setting up the groups function, some of the quirks of what that'll mean, how you populate that, and then how you make a group discussion and a group assignment. The powerful thing to think about when you think about groups is using it to extend any live class sessions that you have, extend, deepen, and support group activities that happen during the live session to be able to have continuity with that and or allow these groups asynchronous way to be able to collaborate or interact to deepen and enrich and build off of or prep for the next live session or off the last live session. For an asynchronous context with all online, it's a great way to promote student-to-student interaction and start to really tap into the power of peer-to-peer engagement. So very powerful feature. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to get a hold of us here.